Hey guys, welcome to the notes for writing point-slope equations. This is a second part for these notes because we used point-slope in one day and now we're going to use point-slope in another way. So our essential question is, why are multiple representations important? So we're just going to review point-slope form here. So you should be familiar with point-slope form at this point, but point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I always want to bring this up because I always want to ask, why is it called point-slope form? Well, it's because this form gives us two different things. It gives us a point and a slope. The slope is represented by m, and the point is represented by x1 and y1, x1 comma y1, because a point is x comma y. And you know that one is the point is because it has those little ones next to them, okay? So the point is not these two guys, it's the other two with the labels on them. Just like kind of how we label for slope. All right, so our first two problems, we're going to write an equation from the tables in point-slope form. Well, I know from the day before or the notes before that in order to write an equation in point-slope form, I need a slope and any point that's on that line. So here I'm given a table, and I'm given 5 points that are on that line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Now, again, in order to get point-slope form, I need a point and a slope. Right now I have 5 points to choose from, but I don't have any slope. So in order to find the slope, I really just need to pick 2 points to find the slope with it. It does not matter what 2 points you pick. I'm going to go ahead and pick the last 2, but it doesn't really matter. You can pick the first 2, the middle 2, the first and the last. Doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go ahead and write out my points. Now I want you to make sure that you're paying attention to your table over here. X's are on top. So the first point is going to be 1, 9, and the second point is 2, 13. Okay, now right now we're trying to find our slope. So I'm going to go ahead and write the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Oops, my phone is still on. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and label my points. That's the first thing I want to do when I'm finding slope. So x1, y1, x2, y2. And remember, we're labeling 1 and 2 because the first set is going to be 1, and then the second set of points is 2. And it's always x comma y, so your x's are going to come first. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and follow my formula. So that's going to be 13 minus 9 over 2 minus 1. Okay, and then I'm going to simplify this. So 13 minus 9 is going to give me 4, and 2 minus 1 is going to give me 1. So that means that my slope is 4. Is that the answer to my question? No. So when I answer a question, I always like to box the answer. So if it's not my answer, I always put a circle around it to remind me that, hey, I'm not done yet. So that is not what they wanted us to find. They wanted us to write an equation in point-slope form. So I'm going to need to pick a point and use my slope. So I can pick any point that's on this line. So let's go ahead and pick, just to be different, -2, -3. Okay, let's pick the first point. Could I pick the other 2 points that I picked? Sure, I could pick any of those 5, but I'm just going to pick the first one. And I'm going to use my slope of 4. Go ahead and write point-slope formula down just so that we have it for reference here. X minus x1. Okay. Now we're going to start plugging our stuff in. So we have y, and then what's my y1? Well, that's your point, right? So my y1 here is -3. But the special thing about point-slope form is that when I plug in the points, the signs are opposite. So instead of writing down a -3, I'm going to put down a +3. Okay? Equals my m. My m means slope, and my slope for this problem was 4. And then my open parentheses, x, and then I have minus x1. Well, my x1 in this problem was -2, but when I plug it in, it's going to be +2. Now, this is just one of many equations I could have. So I could pick any of those points and use those as well. So if you pick the point 1, 9, then your equation might be 1 minus 9 equals 4 times x minus 1. Or if you pick the point 0, 5, it would be y minus 5 equals 4, parentheses, x plus 0 or minus 0, doesn't really matter there. Okay, so there are lots of equations that you could write. That's just one of the equations that I chose to write. Okay, sorry, I keep saying K over and over. Same thing for number 2. We can pick a bunch of points here, but we don't have a slope, so we need to find our slope. Let's go ahead and pick 2 points. Let's pick the middle ones right here. So let's go pick those. So my first point I picked was 5, 1. and the second one was 15, 5. All right, so that's x1, y1, x2, y2. So my m is going to be 5 minus 1 over 15 minus 5. Okay, so I plugged it into that slope formula that I have up there, okay? And that's going to equal 4 over 10. Now, 4 over 10 can simplify to 2 over 5. So my slope here is 2/5. But that's not what my answer is because that's not what they wanted me to find. They wanted me to use point slope form, and all I've done right now is find the slope. So that's only part of the work that I need to do. So let's go ahead and pick a point. Let's go ahead and pick the last point. Why not? Let's pick the point 25, 9. My slope is 2/5. I'm going to write down my point slope equation just for reference again. So I'm going to start off. I have y, and then I need to plug in my y1. Well, my y1 here is going to be 9. It's a positive 9, but when I plug it in, it's going to be negative 9. Equals my m. Well, my m is going to be 2/5, because that's what I solved for, right? I plugged in 2/5 for my m here. Parentheses x, and then my x1, which is 25. It's positive 25, so when I plug it in, it'll be negative 25. And I know I'm changing colors a lot. It's just I want to make sure you get every bit of information that you need for this. So that is how you find point slope or write an equation in point slope form just given a table. The next page, we're going to do graphs. So there's only 2 more problems left. So we write an equation from the graphs below in point slope form. Well, here I'm given 2 graphs, and I'm given lots of points. I'm actually given 4 points in this graph, but I'm not given a slope. And I need to write an equation in point slope form. So we need to write it in point slope form. That means I need a point and a slope. So let's go ahead and first find our slope. It doesn't really matter where we find our slope or what points we choose to find our slope, but we need to use rise over run. That's the easy way to find the slope. The hard way, which is still a way you could use, is that you need to pick 2 points and then use the slope formula. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this point right here. And so let's go ahead and rise to the next point. So we're going to go 1, 2. Well, I went up, so that's positive 2, which means my rise was positive 2. And then I'm going to run to the left 1. Left means negative, so that's negative 1, which means my slope is negative 2. But that's not my answer, okay? My answer is not negative 2. I wanted to write equation in point slope form. I need a point and a slope. I can pick any point on this line. I'm going to pick the first point up here. That point is the point negative 3, negative 3. Okay? So when I use my point slope formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, I'm going to plug in this information. So I picked the point negative 3, negative 3. So we have y, and then we're going to label our x1, y1 here. Our y1 is negative 3, so that would be a plus 3 when I plug it in, equals our m, which is negative 2, times x, and then my x1, which is negative 3, so that's going to be a positive 3 on the inside as well. There we go. But again, you could have chosen any other point. So for example, if I picked the point down here, which is the point 0, negative 3, right? 0, negative 3. If I pick that point, then I would have had y minus, or y plus 3 equals negative 2x minus 0. So again, you could have picked any of those points. I just chose to pick that first one. Okay, and then with this graph, we have the same thing. We're given 3 points, but we're not given a slope, so we need to find it ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and let's start over here on the left. So remember, slope is rise over run. So what is my rise here to get to the next point? My rise would be positive 1, so plus 1 because I went up. And then I'm going to run to get to the next point. So 1, 2, 3. That's to the right, so that's going to be positive 3, which means my slope is positive 1 over 3. But again, not my answer. I'm going to pick a point, and it doesn't matter what point you pick. let's go ahead and pick this one over here. Actually, no, let's be different. Let's pick the first one that we use. Let's pick that point. That point is the point -3, 1. So you went to the left 3 and then up 1. So our point that we chose was -3, +1, and our slope was 1/3. Okay? I'm going to plug it into point slope form here. So I have y, and then I have y1, which is +1, but when I plug it in, it'll be a -1, because remember, it's opposite signs, equals my slope, which is 1/3. Open my parentheses, x, and then I have my minus x1, but x1 is -3, so when I plug it in, it'll be a +3. All right, so that is finding point slope equations or writing point slope equations from graphs and tables. The most important thing is that point slope form is really great because you can pick any point as long as you have a point and a slope. If you have any questions, please feel free to come in for tutoring.